Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. In this video we're going to be talking about the JAL Collection from Agostini. Now this collection is a series of magazines which come with models which has been being produced in Japan for a couple of years now, and previously I'd largely ignored them, and that has changed because of this association that appears to exist between this Agostini JAL Collection and a manufacturer called JTA, which I have been put onto by ngmodels as a new low-cost brand for 400 scale models, and it does appear that JTA make the models for this JAL Collection, which makes me want to take a closer look at the JAL Collection models. So I've been searching around trying to find these JAL Collection models, which isn't actually that easy because the prices with the magazines in Japan are outrageous. However, if you can get access to the Chinese market, then you can find these models for very cheap prices. And I've been able to search around Taobao and acquire a selection of these models which are on their way to the hangar. And some of them have already arrived, and I've got 8 or 9 currently. And I'm gradually working my way through taking a look at the many different molds which this JAL Collection uses to see kind of what they look like, what sort of thing we might be able to expect from JTA in the future if indeed they turn into a new manufacturer and they're producing low-end 400 scale models using these molds. So in this series of videos I'm going to be taking a look through the different molds that I've been able to acquire and see what I think of those in comparison to other 400 scale models of a similar type. Now obviously these are supposed to be low-end, cheap 400 scale models. They don't have all the bells and whistles you'd expect from someone like NG or Gemini. You're going to have relatively ordinary printing, relatively simple molds, older style, cradle mounts, no aerials, no rolling gear, that kind of thing. Okay, so you've got to bear this in mind when you look at these, and I'm being told that in the future, if JTA make models, they will be in the price range of $15 or so, which is pretty much what I was able to acquire these models for. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get on and start having a look at some of these JTA stroke JAL Collection Agostini molds. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the JAL Collection Agostini Boeing 737-400. And as you can see, I've got 2 of these, and that is because for the smaller molds, the JAL Collection magazine releases 2 models per magazine. And in this case, it was this pair of 737-400s for Southwest Airlines, which later became Japan Transocean Air. So how do these things compare to existing 737s? Well, we'll have a look at that. I've got the Dragon 737-300 in this case, but it's broadly the same as a 400, obviously just slightly shorter. And I've got the old Gemini 737-400. This is a version before we put aerials on these things, and doesn't have rolling gear either. So we'll have a look at those and compare them to each other. So up onto the plastic goes the Japan Transocean 737-400, and as you can see, broadly it's a tidy little model. Now you've got to, as always, bear in mind with these the price range in terms of what you're getting for the detail, but actually I'm reasonably happy with this 737-400. It's not quite as good as the MD-90, but it is still a decent little mold. There are a couple of things that are obvious when you look at it here. Firstly, it's a seamed mold, so it's got the wing seam here, which is similar for most JAL Collection models. Secondly, the tail is a separate piece and it's made of plastic, which again is similar for a majority of these JAL Collection models. However, as you can see broadly, it looks pretty nice. Now, one thing that is evident with this JAL Collection 737-400 is that the model itself is a little bit nose high, as you can see when I stand it up like this. And that is because, as with many of these JAL Collection models, the nose gear is a little bit large. So I think that they could shrink the size of that somewhat and maybe even make the gear leg slightly shorter, and it would resolve that problem, and it would fit more closely with the size of nose gear on the other molds like the Gemini here, which has obviously got a much smaller nose gear. Having said that, a lot of the Dragon Wings releases actually have giant nose gear. This one's actually has quite nicely sized, but there are older Dragon 737s with giant nose gear. So, you know, comparing to those old releases, it actually doesn't stand out much. And actually, when you have this model displayed, it actually, again, doesn't really shout out to me as a dramatic problem. Though, nonetheless, it's something that would be nice to see modified. Now, what is good about this mold is the shape of the fuselage. So again, bringing it up, if you look at the nose and the fuselage region on this 777, actually it's really good. Arguably it's better than on either of the other molds that I was just looking at. Also, something that's nice here is that the engines angle upwards, which they ought to do. And once again, these JAL Collection molds have some really nice detailing on the wings and on the underside. And another thing here which is nice to see is that they've gone to the trouble of actually having the recesses for the tyres, which is nice. Again, considering the price range of this model, is some nice detailing. If we move around to the front and have a look, then again you've got nice fan blades. Yeah, the undercarriage looks a bit chunky, but the engines are hung really well from these pylons, and that looks, you know, really good. Arguably, it's a better hang than on the Gemini version. Moving to the rear of the aircraft, the shape is good, the tail is good. It could perhaps be slightly more tightly fitted to the fuselage. I think that the overall shape and angle of the rear of the aeroplane is generally pretty good, and perhaps slightly too flat at the tail cone, but nothing too bad. So I'm reasonably pleased with this Japan Transocean version. And if we switch over to the Southwest version, then you'll see that it kind of looks similar, but the scheme is obviously different. And again, this perhaps has more of a nose high attitude than the other one, but broadly it looks like a 737. And if they could just modify the landing gear somewhat, then I think it would display much better. So if I'm going to be knocking points off this mold, then yeah, let's knock a point off for the nose gear height. Let's yeah, we'll knock a point off for the wing seam here, the fact it's seamed and not slot in. I think that they could probably, you know, slightly modify the tail region and maybe the tail join there. And obviously it's lacking aerials. There's also a seam around the engine, you know, which again is quite common with these JAL Collection models. You know, it's not the end of the universe. So there's a collection of small issues with this, which I think knock off a reasonable number of points, but I'd still be giving this mold something like a 6 out of 10. I still think it's a good little 737 mold. I think it displays pretty well. And if they could just fix the undercarriage, then I think, you know, that it would display a lot better. And certainly, you know, if I move that in and put this, the Gemini one, I actually think that in many ways, this is the JAL Collection mold actually looks nicer in the sense that if we try and put them both together, the undercarriage, you know, it doesn't bother me that much, though it is better on the Gemini. But look at the nose shape, I think is actually better on the JAL Collection. And I think the engine pylons are better too. So it's not necessarily a case that the JAL Collection mold is inferior in every respect to other 737s. Now, of course, I should end this just by saying that Panda Models have a new 737-400 mold, and obviously it's a new 2020 mold. I don't expect this JAL Collection 737 to compete with that. I actually don't own one, so I can't do a comparison. But regardless, if Jet Hut or whoever owns this mold was producing a wide range of 737-400s, people like Air UK Leisure, Air Europe, British Airways, airlines that I'd be interested in, you know, Qantas, then, you know, I'd be buying it. I think it's a good little mold, no major issues, a few changes, and 6 isn't a bad score considering I got both of these for about 15 bucks. Okay, cool. So that's this review down. As always, check me out on my other channels on Instagram, Yes to Airlines, and on Facebook at Yes to Airlines. Check out the website where I obviously post reviews and do a huge amount more work. But that's this one done. Thanks very much for watching, guys. See you later.